discussed, although we begin, these are the children of Noach, the Torah all of a sudden digresses and speaks about his personal situation. Who is he? Noach ish tzaddik, Tomei hoy b'dorosov. He was a righteous man. He was perfect in his generations. So he explained, he cited the pasuk in Mishlei, Zecher tzaddik levrocha. That when you mention the tzaddik, immediately you have to acknowledge who he is, to identify who he is. Why? Shlomo says in Mishlei, in Proverbs, Zecher tzaddik levrocha. When you mention the tzaddik, it has to be in a context of brocha. And as I mentioned and explained it yesterday, because to be able to appreciate and understand, and that person should have the value of a role model, you have to understand who the person is. So therefore, immediately, you speak about him in the most praiseworthy context in terms of what he is. So therefore, the takeaway is something positive. But if something is evil, like a Rosha, Shlomo says, Shem Rishonim Yirkov. The name of the evil should rot. Therefore, you don't praise or you don't speak about anything positive about a Rosha, about an evil person, because that level of representation you want to be totally obliterated, should totally disappear. That should not be a takeaway for anyone. Therefore, Shem Rishonim Yirkov, it should rot. Therefore, it's a necessary digression to appreciate the man who we're speaking about. Dover Acher, another interpretation. Lomei She'ika told Hussein Shel Tzadikim Masim Tovim. The primary accomplishments of a tzaddik are his own deeds, are his good deeds. Although you have children, we all know that every human being is endowed with bechira, with free choice. A person could do his best in terms of raising his child. We find Chizkiyahu Melech Yehuda, who was a tzaddik, who was a person who even initially, who was considered to be Mashiach, but yet he had a son Menashe who was evil, and initially he didn't procreate, knowing that he would have such a son. Because a person has no control over another human being, to a point, but in terms of one's choice, one makes his own choices. So what is considered one's ultimate accomplishment? Not the children, but rather your own deeds, good deeds, because those deeds are fully within your potential, within your dominance, that Hashem gives you that ability to make those choices. And if you succeed, it's fully attributed to yourself. Therefore, the main toldos, derivatives, accomplishments of a human being are his own good deeds. Children, you have to have merit, schus, to have those special children. As we discussed, even Nadav and Avihu, as special as they were, who were the sons of Aaron, ultimately they failed and their lives were taken. And they deserve to be punished. Because at Kabbalah Torah, when the Shekhinah was in the most obvious setting, they gazed at the Shekhinah, which was considered a degree of arrogance. And that arrogance took them down ultimately, because instead of consulting Moshe Rabbeinu about the halach of bringing that fire, whether they were permitted to burn the incense or not, they did not. So that flaw, but that was their choice. And we discussed the Orach Chaim HaKodesh. Aaron, only his chus could have protected them, that they should have clarity. Because Aaron wasn't worthy, because he participated in the Chet Egel, therefore his children did not merit that clarity due to his merit. Therefore, Ika told the saying, Shel Tzadikim Masim Tovim. Therefore, it's not a digression. It's not a digression. The word told us means chronicles. Normally, the chronicles normally means the children. You chronicle a person. What does it mean in his generations? He was, he's tzaddik to tomim hoyo. He was a tzaddik. He was devoutly righteous. He was perfect. bedorosov. Yesh me Rabbein doshnosol l'shevach. There, some of the Chachomim, they interpret this in a praiseworthy context. He was a tzaddik in his generations. What does that mean? If he would have been in a more conducive environment for spirituality, for righteousness, he would have even been a greater tzaddik. So it's pointing out how special he was. Despite the evil of this generation, he was a tzaddik. So you could imagine if he would have been in an environment which would have actually encouraged this, he would have even been a greater tzaddik. So that's what the Torah tells us, Doroses. Despite his generations, he was a tzaddik. That's one interpretation. Others interpret it negatively, critically. Lefisha dor hoyo tzaddik.